video, we're going to talk about GTO Step 6, creating an implementation plan. Previously, in all of the other videos, we've gotten to the point where we're ready for a systematic plan for a particular intervention. We assessed the needs in the community to say, what are the goals, what are the needs that we're trying to address, what is the problem we're trying to solve, what is the condition in the community that we're trying to change. Then from that, we've prioritized needs and set up goals that are directly related to those needs. Those goals were brought down to very specific desired outcomes that are measurable and changeable in a reasonable amount of time, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Then we developed in steps 3 through 5, we selected a program that could address those very specific desired outcomes. And we used the empirical evidence to guide decision-making in step 3. We made sure that that strategy or program that we selected in step 3 would fit within the Thai context. And if it didn't, we'd make adaptations that do not change the essential elements of the program. And then we asked ourselves, how ready are we to do this? And can we build that readiness so we can make sure we do it well? With all of that in mind, we've selected a program that fits for us. We selected the right program for us. And now it's time to make a plan to implement it. Step 6 is all about systematic planning. When you plan for success, it's easier to get to success. So systematic planning is developing a plan that prepares your team to implement, monitor, and evaluate the program. The plan is the blueprint. It is essential to having success. Can you imagine a contractor going out to build a house without having a picture, a blueprint of what the house looks like? You would have builders coming in and roofers coming in and people installing windows and electricity and plumbing, and no one would know where anything's going. Maybe you'd have plumbing popping up in a bedroom and electricity in a closet where no electricity is needed. You need a blueprint so everybody knows what they're doing and when they're supposed to do it. First, you have to build walls before you could paint them. First, you need to recruit staff before they could implement something. And so having this plan, having this blueprint is such an incredible ingredient for success and often very overlooked. What we find with many, many years working with different organizations is that people think they have a plan in their head. They have a general idea of what they want to do, but that plan is not communicated to other people. And so not everybody knows what's going on, and people are on different pages and expectations are different. So if you want to be accountable and you want to make sure everything rolls out in a systematic and straightforward way, take the time to write the plan and engage in a comprehensive and systematic planning process. So what does a process look like? Oh, wait, before we get into what the process looks like, I want to talk a little bit more about the plan. I guess I was one step ahead of myself here. So what are the benefits of plan? It improves communication. Writing down a plan helps everybody know what they're supposed to do and when. It keeps everyone on the same page. Kind of like building the house. The plumber's got to know when the electrician's going to be there. The painters have to know when the walls will be put up so that they could paint. Everybody who's implementing a new intervention or strategy should know what's happening and when, so that everybody is on the same page and communicating well. Having a written plan streamlines communication. It also helps you spot the need for changes before problems arise. And this is especially important when we begin to think about adapting new programs into the Thai context. So if there's needs for changes as we take a program that was built internationally and place it in Thailand, well, we should have things written down so we know when changes are needed. We could identify when mid-course corrections are needed. If there's the same task on a plan that's not being completed time and time again, well, we could ask ourselves, why is this not being completed? What's the problem here? And let's reorient. Let's just make a mid-course correction or a little tiny change so we could get to success and we don't end up just, beating the same drum and getting the same outcome without really pushing ourselves forward. It reduces lost time, wasted energy, and turmoil from staff turnover. So oftentimes what we see happen in healthcare is that there's a turnover rate. New staff come on board. And when that happens, we have to, if we don't have a written plan, we have to explain the plan to them. We have to explain everything that has happened in the past, where we are now and everything that's going to happen in the future. But if the plan is written down, they could read the plan. They can understand what has happened in the past. They can understand and see very concretely where we're going in the future. And so having this plan helps onboarding new staff. So when there's a disruption in the system, when somebody leaves, it doesn't falter the system. It just makes a streamlined process. Helps staff on board, that's what I just covered, and then provides a basis for sustainable long-term plans. Remember, step 10 of GTO is about sustainability. We could plant the seeds of sustainability here by creating a plan that could last in the long term. So planning has 4 main components. What needs to be done? So what are the specific tasks that need to be done? Not only in actually doing the intervention. So let's say your intervention is a physical activity intervention that covers 10 different dates of service. So you have 10 different sessions with families. What has to be done in each one of those 10 days, but also what has to be done before that? How do you know where you're going? Who are you hiring? What are you doing? And what has to be done after? How are you collecting data? How do you know if it works? How are you following up? So it's real comprehensive. What is every single thing that needs to be done in order to implement this program? And then who's responsible for each of these tasks? What's the timeline for each of these tasks? And where will each task be accomplished? What's the location? So things to consider, areas to consider are administrative activities. So are there, if you need materials printed, who's printing the materials? Who's creating the materials? Who's communicating what materials need to be printed? If there are phone numbers, if there's a phone, maybe you're doing a focus group at some point and you need to convene people. Do you know the people that you need to convene? Do you know their phone numbers to call them? All of those micro tasks and activities that are administrative in nature, are they documented? Does your administrative support staff know what they need to do to move this project along, this intervention along? Policies and procedures are a big one, especially in healthcare. And why I love this project so much, because we have policymakers or those who are influential to policy on our team. So are there policies that could be enacted at either the district, sub-district, or community level that support, that facilitate this intervention happening? What about hiring? Do you have enough care managers out there? Do you need to hire more people? Do you need to hire administrative staff? Do you need to hire TAs, right? As we're talking about TAs, do you have enough TAs to do this? Where are these TAs coming from? How are they being trained, right? This is all the hiring part. Securing locations, where will these TA sessions take place? How will TAs be able to provide support to the care managers? Trainings, recruitment of families, how will we get in touch with these elders? Who's in charge of all of the tasks associated with that? Implementation, this is what I mentioned earlier about if you have 10 sessions, what happens at each session? Do you have the materials you need to facilitate those sessions? Do you have the training and support to administer those sessions? And then readiness. In GTO Step 5, we talked about, are you ready to do this program? Well, now we have to say, if you weren't ready, how could we build your readiness? We're gonna, again, talk about that in the next module, but I wanted to put it here that readiness building should be part of the overall plan. If you're not ready to do this, what are the steps you're going to take to get ready? And make sure those steps exist in your plan. I've created a tool that is connected to this TA Academy. You could click the button below that says, under this video that says download this tool. And it's a basic table, but what it is you list every single task that is needed, when that will be completed by, so what's the timeline, a very specific person responsible for completing that task, what resources are needed. So let's say you need materials printed. Well, what do you need in order to print materials? You need the materials to have. So what actual materials are needed to complete this? What are the capacities that are needed to accomplish this task? The last 2 columns are to check off, to be accountable. When did you do each one of these tasks? If you find that one task is just not getting done, that's important for your implementation team to look at and say, well, why isn't this being done? And let's make a mid-course correction. And then the last column is just for comments to better learn what you're doing. So planning is a really important part to success. I encourage you to create one of these plans, and the format of how you do it is up to you. But for each of these considerations, I want you to think through all of the activities that need to be done for each one of these areas, and then create a plan for it with who's responsible in a timeline. And once you put your plan together, I encourage you to share it amongst key people so that everybody's on the same page and knows what is going to happen. Of course, remembering that plans are written on paper or on a computer and not written in stone. And so always be willing to adapt your plan to reach success. Don't be so stuck in a plan that you can't add new tasks or change anything. The plan is a blueprint, it's a guideline, but it's meant to be a living document. So use this tool not as a worksheet that needs to be filled out, but instead a way of getting everybody on the same page and to think comprehensively about what needs to be done so that you can have a plan that leads to success, that is an actual tool that helps you and not just a worksheet that sits, on your desk somewhere. This is a document that could help you really streamline success. So take the time, sit with your team, think comprehensively about the tasks. Once you have all the tasks done, fill out a timeline and who will do it. If you need support planning, please reach out to me. This is an area that people really have a hard time doing. I encourage you to use two resources. One, the timeline set out in the grant itself. Two, associated with the grant would be, there's a lot of timelines that have been put into place for the various arms of this project. So I know Hung 2 has some timelines for data collection. I know the PA interventionists have some timelines in place for developing and adapting the PA intervention. So reach out to these folks, get their timelines, put them all in one place, because as you're training your TA providers, having this type of resource will be helpful for them. And always reach out for me if you want me to help you or dive deeper into this planning process. And that is all I have on planning today. I'll see you in the next video as we implement our plan.